Welcome to episode 2 of the Phoenix Podcast with me, Jen Coffey, your manifestation coach, your life coach, your number one fan, your cheerleader, helping you rise like the Phoenix from where you are now to where you want to be, to where you aspire to be, to where you're meant to be. And we're doing that together. Now, if you're here for episode 2, I owe you a big thank you because hopefully it means you've already listened to episode 1, where we laid the groundwork for the law of attraction and what manifestation means and how it's different from just working hard to get to a goal, but instead working in concert with a really, really strong force that's going to help you make it easy to get to where you want to be. In this episode, though, I'd like to talk about something that is often overlooked in discussions around self-improvement or goal-getting, achieving something in your life, making more money, finding love. Anytime, or most of the time, that people talk about getting to a goal, the assumption is already there that you have a goal. The assumption is already there that you know what you want, that it's eating you alive. You can't believe you don't have it yet. You crave it. But what I realize the more I talk to people is that a very common situation that a lot of people find themselves in is that they don't know what they want to begin with. Everybody wants to be happier. That's just nature's way of making us better, making us want to improve our lives by putting it in our heart that we want to feel better all the time. That's very natural. That's very good. But if we don't know what that happiness means, if we don't know what it is that we crave, and if we're not happy already now, well, that puts us in a more challenging position to get to what we want, because that what we want is one big question mark. And that can be really frustrating, right? To want something, but not know exactly what it is. So I can give you all of the advice about law of attraction, vision boarding, which we're going to do in our next episode. I can give you all the inspirational quotes and the affirmations in the world. But if we don't have a direction, well, we're pretty much back to square one, living our lives just kind of hoping that something great comes along. Now, putting yourself in a good mood is never a bad thing. And if any of those things, affirmations, reading about law of attraction, vision boarding, if it makes you feel better, well, we're already ahead of the game. That's a great thing. That's not failure. But we're here for something more. And I know I'm here for something more. Talking to you, not just to get you to feel a little better, but to make you feel the best you've ever felt. To be in a situation where you can't believe life is this good. And so to get in that situation, it does help to have a focus. It does help to have a goal. So let's talk about that in this episode. How to get what you want if you don't know what you want to begin with. Now, as I mentioned in our first episode, we're going to start off with a grounding quote, something that kind of ties this all together. My hope is over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, we'll accumulate a lot of really great quotes that we can use to lift us up when we find ourselves needing a direction. So our quote for this episode, getting what you want when you don't know what you want in the first place, it comes to us from Walt Whitman, great American author. And while many of us probably read some of his works in high school or college, I highly recommend going back and reading them again. They're just so amazing. And the quote goes like this: "If you want to know where your heart is, look to where your mind goes when it wanders." Let's hear it again. If you want to know where your heart is, look to where your mind goes when it wanders. So when we think about that quote, it really is, at least as I interpret it, Walt's way of helping us connect mind and spirit. If our mind doesn't know what our heart, what our spirit, what our soul wants, well, if we release the mind a little bit and let it go a little rogue, most of the time it'll show us what spirit wants. The two are not opposed. The two are partners to get us to a better place every single day. So we'll infuse a little bit of that mindset, of that thought, into 6 easy steps I love making lists. So you'll find that I do this a lot in our podcast together rather than just dumping a lot of information at you. I love making lists. I love checking them twice. I love crossing them off. So I'll be doing a lot of that, helping you kind of chunk it down and make it a little bit more easy to tackle. But we'll have 6 easy steps to get us from not really knowing what we want to having a better idea, or already having a really good idea of what we want and refining it, because refining it is going to help us a lot when we go to make our vision board, which again, we'll talk about next week. So keeping in mind Walt's quote, we'll start with our first step, and it is an ask of you that might be a little bit opposed to what you usually do. And it involves being a little more childlike. It involves connecting to your inner child. Now, as much as I love acting like a child, going and playing with the kids on the playground and going to theme parks, riding roller coasters, I don't know that I'll ever lose that part of me. This is not what that's about. This is more of an emotional connection to the boy or the girl inside of you who was kind of down for anything, who loved playing pretend, who kept an open mind. And that specifically is what I'm talking about. In order to find out what we really want in life, we really need to open up our mind and our soul to the possibility that we truly want something far different than what we might think we want. It happened to me as I evolved out of a career in traditional brick and mortar retail into a far different job in front of the TV cameras. The two are connected, but it didn't feel like it at the time. So it felt very strange for me to all of a sudden want to be in television, when really what happened was I put myself in a position to be connected to the little girl inside of me who really loved getting dressed up and getting in front of a microphone. So if you can at least approach this idea of connecting mind and spirit, finding out where your mind goes when it wanders, keep an open mind. It's okay to be surprised if you find out that you want something very different than what you have now, but I hope that you don't push it away if you find out that what you want is different than what you have now. I have a little example of something like this that happened in my own life, and you can probably relate if you have your own children or nieces or nephews, or remember yourself as a child. Maybe it happened then. When I was the parent of I think she was 5 or 6 years old at the time. When I was parent to Gabby at 5 or 6 years old, I was trying to find out what kind of things she wanted to do after school and in her free time, right? It's almost obligatory to enroll your kid in something, right? Be it soccer or football or softball or dance or chess or any number of things, right? And I was in dance when I was a little girl, so I thought, okay, let's put Gabby in dance and see if she likes it. So we did. And she did it for a few weeks, but I could tell her heart wasn't really in it. She made a couple of friends, but she wasn't really looking forward to it every week, talking about it. So I asked her, do you want to keep going to dance? And she said, not really. So I said, okay. So we tried a couple of other things. We tried soccer. We tried math club. She was actually really good at that. I don't know where that DNA came from, but it wasn't really lighting her fire. And I'm patient when it comes to that. I don't want to force my child into something that they don't want to do. And I just kept telling her, hey, you know what? It's okay. If you figure out something that you'd like to do, we can look into it, right? Well, one day we were driving to the grocery store or something, and she's in her car seat in the back seat. And she points out the window and she goes, Mama, I want to try that. And I look to the right and I go, you want to try that? And I point. She goes, yeah. And I said, do you know what that is? And she goes, yeah, my friend does that. And I go, okay. Karate school. Now, this is an otherwise very girly girl, right? And karate involves some pretty physical and aggressive moves, right? So I don't blame myself for not thinking that she would be interested in that. But I will say I was a little surprised when she told me that. And I said, hey, first visit's free. Let's go give it a try. So we gave it a try. We used borrowed gear and she loved it. So we bought her all the pink gear, and years later, she ended up with her brown belt in karate. Now, I'm crazy proud of her. But if I had gone with my gut, my mindset, I don't know that I ever would have enrolled her in karate, if I'm honest. And I'm so proud of her for going, this is what I want. I'm going to give it a try. Most kids are like that, right? Because they haven't been tainted yet by expectations, by social norms, by what we see in the media. I'm asking you to connect to that same level of open-mindedness as you go through these next 5 steps. And you might start to discover as you connect with your spirit that what you want is very different, and or something you're not on paper qualified for yet. Don't push it away. You might have that moment of, you want that? Like I did, driving with Gab in the backseat. But don't push it away. Listen to it. It's telling you something, and that it is your highest self. All right, so that's our first step. Our next few steps are going to be questions that you're going to ask yourself, and it's okay if you don't have specific answers yet. Asking the questions prompts you to start thinking about the answer, even if you don't have it solidly. All right, so with that open mind, let's talk about a scenario. Now, I don't know what time of the day you're listening to this, but it really doesn't matter. Let's pretend that I come to you and I say, you've got the day off tomorrow. And I mean off from everything. You've got the day off from work and all your tasks, all your to-dos. Someone else is going to handle it. Don't worry about it. Oh, and you're also off of housework too. So if you have kids, I got them a sitter. I've got them a shuttle to wherever they need to go, school, after school. If you were going to pick up groceries that day and dry cleaning, that's okay. Trust me, it's all taken care of. Your partner's going to keep busy. Everybody wants you just to take the day off. What are you going to do? Now, I know a lot of us tired people are going to say you're going to sleep in. Okay, cool. After you sleep in, what are you going to do with those 24 hours completely responsibility free? It's okay to think about it. It's okay to journal about it. In fact, I absolutely encourage that. In fact, if you have a journal, maybe start it with, my perfect day off starts like this. And then write it out. We're not trying to get to an answer of what your next big life goal is or what it is you really want in life. Don't worry about that. We're simply asking ourselves, what do we really crave when we don't have it invaded by 1,000 other responsibilities? I mean, most of us, if you told us we had the day off tomorrow, we'd go, oh, thank God, because I can finally fold the laundry. Oh, thank goodness, because I have so many places that I need to be with my kids, so I don't have to find coverage for that, right? But if we even remove that and are left with 24 empty hours, are we reading all day? Are we going to yoga? Are we planning a trip? Are we going shopping? Are we taking a class at a community center? You've got all the 24 hours. What are you gonna do? Think about it. Write it out. And if you write that journal prompt and nothing comes about, it's okay. Come back to it later. Just like working out, this is an exercise, and you get better at it the more you go along. All right. Our next question is similar to the last question, but it's a little bit grander. This is actually one of my favorite ones to kind of play with when I have time just to let my thoughts roam. Guys, we don't just have the day off tomorrow. You have as much time off as you like because you won the Powerball. Yeah, congratulations. And it's like one of the big ones. I mean, they're all big, really, when you think about it, right? No. This is the one that even after taxes and everything, you got enough money to do everything you want and take care of the people that you want and take care of the charities that you want. This is the big one. Put a number on it that makes you feel amazing, right? $100 million. Okay, after taxes and everything. $100 million. Wow. What are you going to do? Now, yes, I know we're all going to go in tomorrow and quit our jobs, if we even bother going yet, right? I know we're going to go shopping. I know we're going to travel. We're going to hit up all the amazing places and buy the fancy watch and tell our parents their mortgages are taken care of, right? After you do all that, which really isn't going to take that long, really doing that indulgent part of a Powerball spend, I don't think takes that long. I really doubt you're just going to sit on the sofa for the rest of your life. Human beings love to be productive. I mean, evolutionarily, that's what keeps us going as a species, doing things that perpetuate the survival and the thriving of the species. It's inherent in all of us. So after we buy the fancy cars, take care of our kids and our grandkids and our parents, and for me, every animal shelter I can find, what are you going to do? Are you going to write a book? Would you travel but take cooking classes in every place that you travel? Like, what are you doing when you travel? You're not just there sitting in the hotel room. Are you starting a foundation? Are you creating a scholarship fund? Are you investing, like taking that 100 million and seeing if you can make $1 billion out of it? These are just thoughts. Maybe the whole idea of winning the Powerball is kind of scary to you, and just put it in the bank, let it grow, and keep doing what you're doing. That's okay too. No wrong answers here, as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. So there's another journal prompt for you. Again, we're not asking this question so that we immediately go, you want to be a lawyer, or you want to buy XYZ. It's simply getting the creative juices going, the imagination going. And this will help us now, but boy, oh boy, is it going to help us out next week when we make that vision board as well. Okay, next question. I know I'm asking you a lot of them, but these are fun, right? Who are the people or person, it's okay if it's just one, whom you most admire? It could be someone you've never met, a celebrity, an author, a religious leader, or it could be someone that you know very well, a parent, a relative, a best friend, a mentor, a colleague. Think of, and narrow it down if you can, to just a couple or one, the people you admire the most. And if a name or two popped up immediately, go ahead and write that down in your journal too. And then underneath their names, write for me why you admire them. Because there could be plenty of people who are successful that we admire, but are we just admiring them because they're successful, or wealthy? Because there are plenty of successful and wealthy people that maybe we don't admire. Is it someone who isn't wealthy? In fact, their success is measured almost by the absence of their wealth because they're so giving. Do you admire somebody because they're particularly industrious or prolific in their work? They create constantly. And on the creation note, is there someone you admire because they are so creative and you feel like maybe you're lacking in that area? Is the person you admire most similar to you or vastly different? This is important because remember, we're going back to that childlike open-mindedness. We might discover that the person we admire the most is someone very different from us, creatively, professionally, spiritually. Well, why do we admire them? Is it because we'd like to be more like them, but maybe we're afraid? I mean, these are some of the heavier questions. But for now, who are they and why do you admire them so much? Again, all of this is simply information finding, brainstorming. We're not refining it just yet. We will. Okay. We've asked ourselves 3 pretty good questions after we've set ourselves up to have an open mind. You have the day off tomorrow, what are you going to do? You win the Powerball, what are you going to do? And who do you admire and why do you admire them so much? Simply by asking yourself these questions, you have shifted the way you're thinking. You are now, and this is where it gets really wild, you have a brain, but you can train your brain. With your brain. Whoa, I feel like that's a good idea for an interview I need to do for the podcast. How exactly does that work, right? Well, we all know that there are different parts to us, right? Self-talk is real. Well, that self-talk has an effect, and you know this already. You can talk yourself into a panic attack if you want to, and you can talk yourself into a more elevated mood if you try hard enough. And other people can talk you into different moods. Well, you can talk yourself into being more inquisitive. It works for that too. And so if I ask you now, well, what do you really want? And you go, I don't know, I just want something more. Well, A, you're in the majority. And B, it means we have a direction. Just to ask ourselves the question, can put ourselves on that path. All right. So, having asked ourselves those three questions, we're going to take that brain training a little bit farther. And that brain training is going to come through your everyday life. Everything that you're doing, we can ask ourselves questions without even really having to think about it. Here's your homework. Starting from that first moment, you're going to spend the whole day noticing what you love. I'm talking right down to colors and shapes and sounds and clothing that people are wearing. The lunch that you had, do you love it? Would you have it every day if you could? If the answer is no, what would you have for lunch every day if you could? What are your favorite songs? Your favorite smells? Do you hear someone's laughter and go, I love the sound of that? When you're driving into work, if you're not already driving your dream car, well, instead of shutting your brain off, look around. What cars do you love? What do they look like? What color would it be? Remember, you're going to win the Powerball. What car would you buy? So even if you're not seeing what you love, ask yourself what you do love. And you're going to find, first of all, and beautifully, that it's everywhere. You're going to find yourself at the end of the day almost overwhelmed by how many sights, sounds, tastes, smells, feelings you fall in love with on a daily basis. And so, in the worst case, at the end of the day, you feel pretty darn good because you realize there are so many things for you to love. But if we're going to take it to its highest potential, well, you've just spent 24 hours, or 16, we'll say, if we extract the sleep time. You spent 16 hours brain training your brain to look for what you love. And the more we do anything, it becomes what? It becomes a habit. And so while you may have had to kind of push yourself to be aware for that first day to look for what you loved, at the end of 5 days, 7 days, 21 days, well, you're not just pushing yourself to find it. You'd almost have to try hard not to. And if we can train our brain to see and notice what we love, well, it's a far easier leap to ask it what you would love if you could intend it into your life. There's the transition. Brain training into asking it the question and getting a more immediate answer. So while we're doing that homework, we also have a meditation. But before we get to the meditation, I've waited way too long to tell you about our lovely sponsor. And of course, as I mentioned last time, the sponsor is more or less me. It's also this guy back here who needs a name. It's the Phoenix Yoga. If you go to www.thephoenixyoga.com, you'll find our website for, well, all things the Phoenix Yoga Studio, which is located in Wayne, Pennsylvania, where I am seated and recording right now, where we will soon be hosting yoga classes of all types from beginner to hot power yoga. And we'll be hosting several workshops, including a lot of the wellness professionals whom I really admire in this area. But we also will be offering online yoga classes. I'll be offering my meditations virtually as well, and really a rich, abundant source of wellness products that you can enjoy virtually as well as here in the flesh. I'll also soon be linking the purchase link for my one-on-one manifestation coaching sessions. I've had several of those this week, and they have been really quite remarkable and a lot of fun for everyone involved. So www.thephoenixyoga.com. All right, our last step to finding out what it is we want, even if we don't know now, is a meditation. And that meditation, don't let the word scare you, is really, really simple. It's actually worth talking for a moment or two about the idea, the concept of meditation, and how it has become a little bit, well, people get a little apprehensive about it, and I totally understand. I don't think anybody would argue that we live in a time that is more rife with noise than we are right now. And that noise isn't just from honking horns and just planes overhead. It's the information noise, the advertising noise that we're getting all the time. Open up your phone and you have instant access to millions, billions of bits of information, most of which your brain does not want or need. And so it's harder than ever now to quiet the mind. When people think of meditation, they often think of quieting the mind entirely. Well, not only is that near impossible for most of us where we are right now, it's a lot to ask, even of people who are very seasoned meditators. I prefer to think of meditation as quieting down the mind. I talked about this in our last podcast. Taking that noise level and simply reducing it a little, and then a little more, and then a little more. I find it very helpful. A lot of meditators find it helpful to have a grounding thought to come back to so that you're still keeping the brain busy thinking. You're just giving it a little bit of a break. But that grounding thought can be very helpful, very productive, and very calming in its own way. In other words, there really is no bad meditation unless your meditation is fraught with worry. Moving meditations are really good too. And you can do this while you're walking or in yoga as well. So our meditation is a very simple question. We're going to find a few moments of peace, of calm, of quiet, as much as we can. Again, it's okay if those are, busy moms and dads, the 2 minutes that you have sat on the toilet. It's okay. That can be meditation too. Find those quiet moments. Take a couple of deep breaths. And when your mind starts to wander, ask it, what do I really want? What do I really want? And sit with that question. Don't reach out, try to grab an answer. Don't expect it to pop up right away. Just ask. You're putting a question out into the universe, but you're putting it into your subconscious as well. You're feeding it something to chew on. And as your thoughts start to go to the things you got to do, that thing one person said, what do I really want? In just a couple of minutes, you may ask yourself this twice. You may ask it 22 times. It's okay. That's your temporary mantra. And a mantra can be a question. And the more we ask, the more we're going to find answers. After we've done all of this, ask ourselves the questions, kept an open mind, meditated, looked for the things that we loved. This is where it gets a little weird. That answer is going to show itself to you. It's going to show itself to you in a conversation, in a future meditation, in a quiet moment, in a dream while you're sleeping, when you're flipping through a magazine and you see the photo of a woman living the life you suddenly realize you want to live in the future. Because you've opened up the mind and you've fed it the question and fed it what you love, as generic as what you love might be, it's going to give you back what the heart wants. When you let the mind wander, you'll know where your heart is. it is a little bit more twisty and turny than just saying, what do I want? And then hoping for an answer. But that twisting and turning and brain training will take you from, maybe this is what I want, to, oh my goodness, this is what I was born for. And once you find out what you were born for, and FYI, you're born for what you're doing right now too. But once you find out what next you're born for, nothing can stop you. Next week, we're going to talk about vision boarding. And hopefully by then you have a better idea of what you want. Or maybe you're like me and you want a million things and you need to refine it. Vision boarding is going to be our next podcast. And I'm going to call it Vision Board Basics because it really is simple, but it's a little bit more layered than just putting a bunch of pictures on a bulletin board. We'll talk about that. Don't forget, this week, meditate and ask, what do I want? Ask yourself the questions. If you had the day off, if you won the Powerball, who do you admire and why? And then train your brain by noticing what you want with an open mind. Have fun with it. My name's Jen Coffey. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I'll see you next week for the Phoenix Podcast.